We are now joined via Skype by Gail Smith, who is a spokesperson for the Human Rights Commission. Gail, thank you so much for joining us. Now, are ordinary citizens allowed to make submissions, and how do you screen them?
Good evening. I'm sorry, I'm really struggling to hear you, so you'll have to repeat your question.
All right, Gail, I was just trying to find out if ordinary citizens are allowed to make submissions to the Human Rights Commission, and how do you screen them?
No, it's a public process, so the public is very welcome to come in, to listen, to participate. But for the purposes of this hearing, we invited submissions mostly from the implementers of new legislation. So from the people who have to implement the actual laws that regulate hate speech, and people who manage or own social media platforms. So we've invited submissions. It is a public process. The public can come and sit in and listen, but at this stage we are not taking public submissions necessarily.
Now, the the Klerk Foundation is among organizations that have made submissions at today's public hearing, and it says lack of political leadership and the sharp economic decline are to blame for racist comments and incidents taking place in society. What else did they put forward?
Well, to be honest, I can't give you the entire submission. We had a whole day full of submissions, so I'm afraid I'm not able to give you the detail of the de Klerk Foundation submission. But I think if memory serves correctly, they rightly point out that the lack of socioeconomic rights, which then lead to poverty or exacerbate current poverty, do create a climate where discrimination and racism can flourish. And I think they make an important link between economic empowerment and the ability to then exercise one's rights to be free of racism and prejudice.
Now, Facebook has also made its submissions and has stated that they remain committed to working with any country to combat hate speech. What role can they play to stop racist attacks on their platforms?
Well, I think the owners of the platforms are very, very important. And I think that internationally, globally, I think all the major players in this field, whether it be Facebook or YouTube or Google or Firefox, any of those major multinational platforms are very concerned about online hate. And I think that Facebook made their submission today and just spoke about the procedures and processes that they have put in place to combat prejudicial comments on their platforms. And I know that it's a big issue for a lot of these international players because obviously they take piracy very seriously, they take copyright very seriously, and it stands to reason that they would then take racism or prejudice very seriously.
Now, who else is expected to testify tomorrow?
Tomorrow we'll have a range of academics who have been working on the issues of hate speech and racism and prejudice. So we have quite a wide array of academics and or other organizations that are coming in to make submissions. I know we're going to have Professor Kathy Albertine from Wits University and a couple of other people.
Now, Gail, is 2 days really enough to get to the bottom of this matter?
I think you have to understand what the purpose of the hearing. We're not trying to get to the bottom of racism. That's not at all what we're trying to do. We're trying to get an understanding of what constitutes racism in the context of social media. We're trying to understand who should be accountable. Is it the person who makes the post? Is it the person who disseminates the post? Is it the platform that hosts the post? We're trying to get a whole range of stakeholders who have a vested interest in the matter to give us their understanding of what racism is on social media, who should be held accountable, and to what extent. So it's not a witch hunt. This is not an investigative hearing. We're not going to make findings against anybody. We recognize that racism in our society continues to be a problem, and we recognize that social media has in effect become another site. Think of it as the 10th province of South Africa. We have 9 real provinces, and then we have this province called Facebook or social media where all sorts of things are happening. So we're trying to understand what's happening in that space, and we're trying to understand how we as a society can then use that space for positive, not necessarily for negative.
Now, let's just look at these racist incidents. Are they lopsided with one particular race in society being victimized?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, I'm sure if you're on social media, you understand that, it is a very ubiquitous global network. So all of us who are on Facebook are connected to people all around the world. So it's a very difficult thing to say because what we see on our social media platforms comes from all over the world, yeah? With respect to South Africa, again, we're seeing posts coming from all sorts of South Africans. And it's very, very clear that because of the anonymity of social media, because of the anonymity of the web, people feel emboldened to say things that they would never, or maybe they would, but, that they would be reticent to say in public. But when they are behind their computer screens, they think that nobody can see them, so they speak and they say things. And people also use Facebook, out of frustration. I'm a Facebook user. I know I do exactly the same thing. Shouldn't say Facebook, I mean social media. People use social media as an act of frustration. You're sitting in traffic, you're angry, you take out your phone, you just post without thinking, yeah?
Now,
so
once...
Sorry,
Gail. Once the submissions are completed after the 2 days, with tomorrow being the second day, what then? What happens going forward?
Okay, well, what we're trying to do is, as I said, we're trying to develop a consistent approach to resolving the issue of racial discrimination in the context of social media. So after the hearings, we're going to be producing a report which will include a number of recommendations. And we're very, very happy to have a really distinguished panel. So it's our chairperson, Advocate Bongani Majola, Commissioner Makwetla, and then retired Justice L.B. Sachs. So these are really sort of three seasoned minds that are going to apply themselves to the submissions. And the idea then is to put all of the submissions that we've heard into one consolidated report, which then puts across a clear position on racism, discrimination, hate speech in the context of social media.
Gail, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Gail Smith, and she is a spokesperson for the Human Rights Commission.